The warning came too late. Zilinara pressed her crystalline hands against the viewing portal of her science vessel, watching in horror as the third moon of Kepler 440c crumbled into dust. The massive dark ships surrounding it moved like hungry insects, their mechanical arms tearing chunks of rock and metal from the surface. What had been a thriving mining colony just hours ago was now nothing but floating debris. "They're moving faster than our calculations predicted," whispered her assistant Mortesh. His blue skin had turned pale with fear. "At this rate, they'll reach the homeworld in 6 cycles. The Devourers had appeared without warning 3 months ago. The first anyone knew of their existence was when the outer research stations went silent. Then the mining world stopped responding to communications. By the time the Zephyrian Defense Fleet arrived to investigate, they found empty space where planets used to be. These creatures were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They consumed everything organic and inorganic, metal and rock, atmosphere and water. They left nothing behind except the cold vacuum of space. The few survivors described ships that seemed to be alive, covered in writhing tentacles and pulsing with their own light. "Send another message to the Galactic Council," Zilinara ordered. "Tell them we need military assistance immediately." "I've sent 17 messages," Mortesh replied. "They keep saying they're discussing options." Zilinara's species had been part of the Galactic Council for over 1,000 years. They were known throughout the galaxy for their peaceful nature and advanced biotechnology. Their crystal cities were considered some of the most beautiful structures in known space. The Zephyrians had never fought a war because they had never needed to, till now, 2,000 light-years away, on the orbital station above Centauri. Prime, the Galactic Council, was indeed discussing options. The massive chamber held representatives from dozens of species, all floating in their preferred atmospheric conditions behind energy barriers. Veltar of the Aquatic Dominion moved his tentacles nervously as he addressed the assembly. His water-filled sphere bobbed gently in the zero-gravity chamber. "The situation in the Kepler system grows worse by the hour," he announced. "Our latest reports indicate that the Devourer fleet has consumed 4 planetary bodies and shows no signs of slowing." A crystalline being from the Etheri delegation spoke next, its voice chiming like broken glass. "We sympathize with the Zephyrians' plight, but our military capabilities are limited to system defense. These creatures appear to be a deep space threat. The Vorthok Collective has similar limitations," admitted a gaseous entity whose words formed as colored lights in the chamber. "Our ships are designed for nebula operations, not direct combat." The plant-like Sylvani representative swayed gently as it added, "Our defensive spores would be ineffective against silicon-based lifeforms. We regret that we cannot assist." This was the problem with the Galactic Council. Most member species had evolved on worlds where competition was minimal and cooperation was the norm. Their technologies were focused on exploration, trade, and cultural exchange. Very few had developed military capabilities beyond basic system. Patrol vessels. Veltar's tentacles curled with frustration. "Then we must expand our search. Surely somewhere in the galaxy there exists a species with the military knowledge to combat this threat." "Speak of mercenaries," the Etheri representative chimed disapprovingly. "Such practices are against Council principles." "I speak of survival," Veltar replied sharply. "If we cannot stop these Devourers, they will eventually threaten all our worlds." The debate continued for hours, as it had for weeks. Meanwhile, in the Kepler system, another world died. The emergency transmission was finally approved after the 5th Zephyrian world fell to the Devourers. It was a desperate measure, broadcasting on all known frequencies and subspace channels. The message was simple: galactic emergency. Unknown hostile force consuming inhabited worlds. Military assistance urgently needed. Willing to negotiate any terms for immediate aid? The transmission raced across space, reaching every corner of the galaxy. It was picked up by trading vessels, exploration ships, and monitoring stations. Most species that received it simply forwarded it to the Council with expressions of sympathy and regret that they could not help. But there were listening posts in dark corners of space that most galactic maps didn't show. Ancient automated stations left behind by extinct civilizations, pirate bases hidden in asteroid fields, and deep space monitoring arrays belonging to species that preferred to remain hidden. One such array sat in the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon, sensors constantly scanning the galaxy for signs of technological activity. It had been operating for 73 years, built by a species that the galaxy had classified as too dangerous to contact directly. The signal reached Sol system for hours after the initial broadcast. Automated systems immediately recognized it as a priority transmission and routed it to the appropriate authorities. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's third-largest continent, alarms began to sound. General Kate Morrison had been expecting this call for most of her career. She stood in the command center of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, watching as her staff processed the incoming data. The facility looked like any other military installation from the outside, but the technology humming behind its walls was far more advanced than anyone suspected. "Ma'am, we have full translation of the alien distress signal," reported Lieutenant Colonel Danny Price, her communications officer. "The species calls itself Zephyrian. They're facing extinction from something called Devourers." Morrison studied the tactical display showing the Kepler system. Red markers indicated Devourer fleet positions, while blue dots showed remaining Zephyrian populations. The situation was clearly desperate. "Analysis?" she asked Major Susan Clark, the base xenobiologist. Consulted her datapad. "Based on the transmission, these Devourers appear to be a consuming species, possibly artificial in origin. They show characteristics similar to theoretical von Neumann machines designed for resource extraction." Translation: space locusts, Morrison said grimly. "How long until they finish with the Zephyrians?" "At their current consumption rate, approximately 6 to 8 weeks, Clark replied. Morrison nodded slowly. For over 7 decades, humanity had been listening to galactic communications while remaining hidden from the broader cosmic community. They had learned about the peaceful council species, their technologies, and their limitations. They'd also learned that most of the galaxy viewed Earth as a quarantined death world, too dangerous to approach. The classification wasn't entirely wrong. Earth's environmental conditions were extreme by galactic standards. The atmospheric oxygen levels that humans required would be toxic to most species. The temperature variations, weather patterns, and gravitational forces that seemed normal to humans were considered nearly impossible to survive elsewhere. But the galaxy had made one crucial mistake in their assessment. They had assumed that being classified as a death world meant its inhabitants would be primitive and contained. They never considered that a species tough enough to thrive in such conditions might develop technologies and capabilities that peaceful civilizations couldn't imagine. "Contact the president," Morrison ordered. "Tell him we have a Code 7 situation. It's time for Project Emergence." Lieutenant Colonel Price looked up from his console. "Em, are we really going to reveal ourselves?" Morrison watched the tactical display as another Zephyrian world went dark. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was crying out for help that their peaceful neighbors couldn't provide. But Earth's children had been preparing for this moment for generations. "The galaxy thinks we're too dangerous to contact," she said quietly. "Maybe it's time to show them they were right about one thing. We are dangerous. The question is whether we're dangerous to the right people." The alert klaxons echoed through the facility as humanity prepared to step out of the shadows and into galactic history. The elevator descended to kilometers into the Colorado mountains before stopping at level 7. General Kate Morrison walked through corridors that officially didn't exist, past blast doors thick enough to survive nuclear war. The underground complex had been built during the Cold War, but its current purpose was far different from its original design. Dr. Ryan Thompson was waiting in the main briefing room, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and alien ship designs. As head of the Extraterrestrial Intelligence Division, he had spent the last 20 years studying every scrap of information humanity had gathered about the galaxy beyond Earth. "Show me what we're dealing with," Morrison said without preamble. Thompson activated a 3-dimensional display of the Kepler system. "The Devourers are unlike anything we've seen before. They're not just destroying planets, they're consuming them completely. Our analysis suggests they're converting matter into energy and new ship components. How many ships are we looking? At current count is 47 large vessels, each approximately 3 kilometers long. They're accompanied by hundreds of smaller craft. The technology appears to be biomechanical, possibly grown rather than built. Morrison studied the tactical display. After decades of preparing for first contact, she had never imagined it would come like this. What about the Zephyrians? Peaceful species, highly advanced in biotechnology and crystal engineering, population of approximately 8 billion spread across 12 worlds. They have no military to speak of, just exploration and research vessels. Thompson paused. General, they're going to be extinct within weeks unless someone intervenes. The briefing room door opened and President Helen Carter entered, followed by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Morrison had worked with Carter for 3 years, but the President had only learned about humanity's true capabilities 6 months ago, during a classified briefing that had left her speechless for nearly an hour. Gentlemen, ladies, the President began, taking her seat at the head of the table. I've been fully briefed on the situation. The question before us is simple. Do we reveal ourselves to save a species we've never met? Admiral Frank Collins, Chief of Naval Operations, leaned forward. Madame President, we've spent 70 years preparing for this moment. Our space fleet is ready, our Marines are trained, and our technology surpasses anything the galaxy has seen. Guess if we're going to act, this is the perfect scenario. Perfect, asked General Patricia Hayes, head of the Army. We're talking about first contact with hostile aliens in a war zone. That's exactly why it's perfect, Collins replied. We introduce ourselves as saviors, not invaders. The galaxy will see us as protectors rather than threats. Thompson activated another display, showing Earth's hidden space assets. The Third Fleet has been on standby for 18 months. 12 ships, including the USS Valiant and USS Phoenix. Each vessel carries a full complement of Terran Marines and enough firepower to level a continent. Morrison had visited the lunar shipyards where these vessels were built. They looked nothing like the exploration ships used by Council species. They were built for war, with armor plating that could withstand nuclear weapons and weapon systems designed to destroy enemy fleets. The fusion drives alone would terrify most galactic civilizations. What about the cover story? The President asked. We maintain the fiction that we're still a single-planet species, Thompson replied. As far as the galaxy knows, we just developed faster-than-light travel and immediately responded to the distress call. They don't need to know we've been watching them for decades. Admiral Collins brought up fleet deployment plans. Captain Lisa Hayes commands the Valiant. Captain Danny Foster has the Phoenix. Both are experienced commanders who've trained specifically for first contact scenarios. The President turned to Morrison. Kay, what's your assessment? Morrison had been preparing for this question her entire career. Ma'am, we always knew this day would come. The galaxy classified us as a death world because our planet breeds survivors. We've turned that into an advantage. Our soldiers can fight in environments that would kill most aliens. Our ships are built to survive battles that would cripple Council vessels. If we don't act now, we may never get another chance to establish ourselves as galactic protectors rather than threats. There's another consideration, Thompson added. If the Devourers finish consuming the Zephyrian worlds, they'll likely move on to other systems. This threat won't stop with one species. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Ali, the President spoke. How long until our fleet can reach the Kepler system? 18 hours to launch, 72 hours travel time, Admiral Collins replied. We can be engaging the enemy within 4 days. And if we lose? Morrison answered without hesitation. Then the galaxy learns that even Deathworlders can die. But they'll also learn that some species don't go quietly. The decision was made within the hour. Project Emergence was officially authorized, and humanity prepared to reveal itself to the galaxy. Orders went out through encrypted channels to facilities hidden across Earth and throughout the Sol system, on the dark side of Luna. Massive hangar doors slid open for the first time in 5 years. The USS Valiant emerged first, its black hull absorbing starlight as it moved away from the moon. The ship was 800 meters long and bristled with weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Railguns that could punch through planetary armor. Missile tubes loaded with fusion warheads. Point defense systems that could track thousands of targets simultaneously. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of her ship, watching as the rest of the Third Fleet assembled around her. She had joined the Space Force 15 years ago, when humanity's secret fleet consisted of just 3 vessels. Now, she commanded a dreadnought that could fight an entire alien armada. All ships report. "Ready, Captain," announced Lieutenant Commander Bobby Martinez, her executive officer. "Fleet Admiral Parker is requesting final confirmation before jump." Hayes activated her communications system. "All ships, this is Valiant. We've trained for this moment our entire careers. Remember, we're not just representing Earth today. Introducing humanity to the galaxy. Make it count." The Phoenix moved into formation beside the Valiant. Captain Danny Foster had grown up in the space program, born on Mars Colony before it was officially established. His ship carried the most experienced Marines in the fleet. Soldiers who had trained in environments that simulated alien worlds. "Valiant, this is Phoenix." Foster's voice came through the comm system. "My people are ready to show the galaxy what Deathworlders can do." Admiral John Parker commanded the fleet from his flagship, the USS Constitution. I'm for a ransom son, I'm Alvis son with some rhyme, succeed by Sinbara form, Sarah by the Ralph, Sagan, I'm as a risk, Sarah, rise out on a rise, as a mess, To remember when humanity first detected alien signals, he had devoted his life to preparing for this moment. "All vessels, prepare for hyperspace jump," Parker announced. Destination: Kepler 442 system. Time to jump: 30 seconds. The space around the fleet began to distort as the hyperspace drives activated. These engines used principles that the peaceful council species had never developed, borrowed from the wreckage of more aggressive civilizations that had destroyed themselves long ago. 10 seconds to jump, Parker continued. "Remember, we're not just going to save the Zephyrians. We're establishing humanity's place in galactic history." The fleet disappeared in a flash of twisted space-time, leaving only empty space where Earth's most powerful warships had been moments before. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations registered the hyperspace signatures and began transmitting reports to distant alien civilizations. For the first time in galactic history, ships from the quarantined death world, Sal-3, had left their home system. The galaxy was about to meet its new neighbors, and nothing would ever be the same. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and what they saw made even veteran soldiers pause. The outer planets were gone. In their place floated massive debris fields that sparkled in the light of the distant star. Dark shapes moved through the wreckage like hungry sharks, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. "Mother of God," whispered Captain Lisa Hayes from the bridge of the USS Valiant. "How many planets did they consume?"
Lieutenant Commander
Bobby Martinez checked his sensors. 6 confirmed planetary bodies completely gone, Captain. The debris fields showed traces of metal, rock, and organic matter. They didn't just destroy these worlds, they ate them. The Devourer fleet was spread throughout the system, their biomechanical ships pulsing with their own light. Each vessel was covered in writhing tentacles that seemed to taste the vacuum of space. Smaller craft swarmed around the larger ships like antibodies protecting a living organism. Contact the Phoenix, Hayes ordered. Tell Captain Foster we need reconnaissance data before we announce our presence. On the stealth frigate USS Falcon, Commander Alex Rodriguez prepared his ship for the most important mission in human history. The Falcon was designed for exactly this type of work, its hull coated with materials that absorbed sensor sweeps while its crew gathered intelligence. Take us in slow and quiet, Rodriguez told his pilot, Lieutenant Maria Santos. I want to know everything about these creatures before we say hello. The Falcon moved through the outer system like a ghost, its sensors recording everything. The Devourer ships were unlike anything in human databases. They seemed to grow rather than being built, with new sections constantly forming as they consumed matter. The smaller craft were obviously extensions of the larger ones, connected by streams of energy that looked almost like neural pathways. Commander, I'm picking up massive energy signatures from the inner system, reported Ensign Carl Brooks from the sensor station. It looks like there are still inhabited planets closer to the star. Rodriguez studied the tactical display. Worlds still showed signs of civilization, their surfaces glowing with the light of crystal cities. But they were surrounded by Devourer forces that grew stronger every hour. Sir, I'm detecting distress signals, Brooks continued. Multiple ships, fleeing the inner planets. They're broadcasting emergency signals in the same language we intercepted. The Zephyrians, Rodriguez said, set course for those evacuation ships. It's time for first contact. The refugee convoy consisted of 12 ships, each one packed with thousands of crystalline beings. They had fled their outer colonies as the Devourers consumed world after world, caring nothing but their lives and whatever knowledge they could preserve. Ship Commander Silthius stood on the bridge of his evacuation vessel, watching his scanners in confusion. Something was approaching from the outer system, something that didn't match any known ship design. The vessel was small compared to the Devourer motherships, but its energy signature was unlike anything in Galactic Council databases. Unknown. Vessel. This is Zephyrion evacuation ship Crystalwind. Silthi's broadcast on all frequencies. State your identity and intentions. The response came in perfect Zephyrian, though the accent was strange. Crystalwind, this is Commander Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Falcon. We received your distress call and have come to assist. Silthies felt his crystalline skin change color with shock. Earth. But that's impossible. 3 is a quarantined death world. No ship has ever left that system. That's what everyone thought, Rodriguez replied calmly. We'd like to prove them wrong. Request permission to come alongside and discuss the tactical situation. Minutes later, Rodriguez and his translator, Lieutenant Rebecca Stone, materialized aboard the Zephyrian ship using human teleportation technology. Silthy stared at them in amazement. They were smaller than most galactic species, but there was something about them that radiated controlled danger. You're actually from the Death World, Silthy said, his voice chiming like crystal bells. How is this possible? The Council classified your planet as uninhabitable. Stone smiled as she adjusted her universal translator. We prefer to think of it as challenging.
What's the current situation with the Devourers?
Hopeless, Silthies replied sadly. They've consumed 6 of our worlds in 3 months. The remaining populations are evacuating to the homeworld, but it's only a matter of time. The Galactic Council has no military forces capable of stopping them. Rodriguez activated a holographic display showing the human fleet positions. What if we told you that might not be true anymore? Sylthie studied the tactical display with growing amazement. The human ships were positioned throughout the system, their formation suggesting military experience that peaceful council species had never developed. How many vessels? Sylthie asked. 12 heavy warships, plus support craft, Rodriguez answered. We've been monitoring the situation and believe we can eliminate the Devourer threat. Monitoring? For how long? Stone and Rodriguez exchanged glances. Let's just say we've been keeping an eye on galactic affairs longer than most people realize. The conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert from the Zephyrian homeworld. The largest group of Devourer ships was moving toward the final inhabited planet, their feeding tentacles already extending toward the atmosphere. We have to warn them, Sylthies said desperately. 8 billion people live on that world. They'll be fine, Rodriguez said with quiet confidence. Our main fleet is already moving into position. In the inner system, Admiral Parker watched. From the Constitution, as his ships took up battle formations, the human vessels were dwarfed by the massive Devourer motherships. But their crews had trained for exactly this type of engagement. All ships, this is Admiral Parker, he broadcast on the fleet frequency. Rules of engagement are simple. Anything that's consuming planets dies. No prisoners, no negotiations. Show them what happens when you threaten innocent people. Phoenix moved into attack position, its weapon systems coming online. Captain Foster had studied the sensor data from the Falcon and identified weak points in the Devourer ship designs. Target their feeding appendages first, Foster ordered his weapons officer. Cut them off from their food source and they'll be vulnerable. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council, reported the communications officer. They're demanding to know our identity. Foster smiled grimly. Tell them we're the neighbors they forgot about. The battle began when the detected the human fleet and moved to investigate. They had never encountered resistance before, so their first response was curiosity rather than aggression. That mistake cost them dearly. The Valiant opened fire with railguns that accelerated metal slugs to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles punched through Devourer hull material like paper, causing massive explosions as they struck vital systems. Direct hit on the lead mothership, reported Martinez. Their bioarmor is no match for kinetic weapons. Similar reports came from across the fleet as human ships engaged targets throughout the system. The Devourers tried to respond, but their weapons were designed for consuming matter, not fighting other spacecraft. On the Crystal Wind, Sylthies watched the battle in amazement. The human ships moved with precision that suggested centuries of military development, their coordination perfect, despite being outnumbered. Your people fight like they were born for war, he observed. In a way we were, Stone replied. Our world doesn't produce anything except survivors. The first phase of the battle was over within an hour. Half the Devourer fleet was either destroyed or crippled, their biomechanical systems, unable to adapt quickly enough to human tactics. But the real test was yet to come. The largest mothership, over 5 kilometers long, began to pulse with angry red light as it realized it faced a genuine threat for the first time in its existence. All ships, priority target bearing 27 Mark IV, Parker announced. The Queen ship, take it down, and the rest will follow. The Devourer Queen ship was a nightmare made real. Its biomechanical hull stretched over 5 kilometers from end to end, covered in thousands of feeding tentacles that reached out like the arms of a dying octopus. Smaller Devourer craft swarmed around it like protective insects, their movements coordinated by signals that pulsed through the Queen's massive body. Colonel Ben Carter stood in the briefing room of the USS Valiant, studying holographic displays of the enemy vessel. As commander of the 3rd Marine Assault Battalion, he had trained for boarding actions against alien ships, but nothing had prepared him for this. The outer hull is at least 30 meters thick, reported Dr. Patricia Wells, the fleet's chief xenobiologist. It's part armor, part living tissue. Our scans show the interior is filled with processing chambers where they digest consumed matter. Carter nodded grimly. Weak points, here and here. Wells pointed to sections near the ships. Middle. These appear to be neural junction points. If we can disrupt them, We might be able to interfere with their coordination. What about atmosphere? Toxic to most council species, but your environmental suit should handle it.
Hot.
Temperature is approximately 40 degrees Celsius. Pressure is twice Earth normal. The bigger problem is the biological activity. The ship is literally alive and will try to digest anything organic that enters it. Carter turned to his squad leaders. Sergeant Monica Davis commanded Alpha Squad, the best close-quarters combat unit in the human fleet. Staff Sergeant Kevin Murphy led Bravo Squad, specialists in demolitions and technical warfare. Together, they represented humanity's most elite soldiers. We're going in hard and fast, Carter explained. Alpha Squad takes the primary neural center, Bravo Squad hits the secondary. Plant the charges, get out, and let the fleet finish the job. Davis checked her assault rifle one final time. The weapon was designed specifically for fighting in alien environments, firing explosive rounds that could penetrate most known armor types. Her squad carried enough firepower to level a city. Block, sir? What about civilian populations? Asked Murphy. Intel suggests some of these ships might have prisoners. Negative, Dr. Wells interjected. Scans show no life signs except the Devourers themselves. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything immediately. The assault shuttles launched. From the Valiant's hangar bay, their hulls designed to penetrate enemy vessels through brute force. Pilot Captain Jenny Walsh had practiced this maneuver hundreds of times in simulations, but never against a target that was actively trying to eat her ship. 30 seconds to impact, Walsh announced over the comm system. Hold on to something. Back there, the shuttle slammed into the Devourer hull, with enough force to crater concrete. Specially designed penetrator charges blew a hole through the bioarmor. The Marines poured through into an environment that defied description. The interior of the ship was like being inside a living stomach. Walls pulsed with their own heartbeat, and the floor was covered in a thick acidic fluid that hissed against their boots. Overhead, nerve clusters glowed with bioluminescent light as they carried signals throughout the vessel. Shh, Christ, muttered Private Bobby Williams, Alpha, Squad's youngest member. This place is alive. Stay focused, Davis ordered. Weapons hot. Watch your spacing. Shh. Remember, this thing wants to digest us. The Marines moved through corridors that shifted and changed as they advanced. The Devourer ship was trying to adapt to their presence, growing new passages to confuse them, while secreting stronger acids to break down their equipment. Contact front, called Corporal Nancy Rodriguez, as shapes emerged from the walls. Creatures were like nothing in human databases, part machine and part organic horror. They moved on dozens of legs while their upper bodies opened to reveal rows of grinding teeth. The Marines opened fire immediately. Their explosive rounds tore through the creatures, but more kept emerging from hidden chambers. The battle became a running firefight through passages that tried to close around them. Alpha Squad, this is Bravo. Murphy's voice crackled over the radio. We're taking heavy resistance at the secondary target. These things keep regenerating. Copy. That, Carter replied from the command shuttle. Dr. Wells, any suggestions? Wells studied her readings from the ship's sensors. The creatures are controlled by bioelectric signals from the neural centers. If you can disrupt those signals, they should become uncoordinated. Davis pulled an electromagnetic pulse grenade from her belt. Everyone cleared the area, she shouted, then triggered the device. The explosion sent waves of electromagnetic energy through the ship's nervous system, causing the attacking creatures to freeze in place. That's our opening, Davis called. Move, move, move. The Marines advanced deeper into the ship, fighting through chambers filled with half-digested matter from consumed worlds. Some sections contained recognizable debris from Zephyrian cities, while others held the remains of species they couldn't identify. Look at this, said Private Tom Baker, examining a massive processing chamber. They're not just eating planets for resources. They're cataloging everything, storing genetic information. Dr. Wells, monitoring from the fleet, felt her blood run. Cold, Colonel, I'm reading massive data storage systems throughout that ship. The Devourers aren't just consuming civilizations. They're preserving them somehow. For what purpose? Carter asked. Unknown, but if they're building a library of consumed species, this threat is bigger than we thought. Alpha Squad reached the primary neural center, a chamber the size of a cathedral filled with pulsing brain tissue. Electrical signals raced through the organic circuits like lightning, coordinating the actions of thousands of Devourer craft throughout the system. "This is it," Davis said, placing explosive charges around the chamber's perimeter. "Once we blow this, the whole ship should lose coordination." "Wait," interrupted Private Williams. "I'm reading something else. There's a transmission coming from this center, something directed outside the system." Dr. Wells heard the report and felt a chill. "They're calling for reinforcements. Colonel, you need to destroy that neural center immediately before they can complete the transmission." The charges detonated with tremendous force, sending shockwaves through the entire ship. The neural center collapsed in on itself, cutting off the bioelectric signals that controlled the Devourer fleet. Throughout the system, enemy ships began to drift aimlessly as their coordination network failed, but the damage was already done. The transmission had been completed seconds before the explosion. "All squads, emergency extraction," Carter ordered. "The mission is complete, but we may have bigger problems incoming." The Marines fought their way back to the extraction point as the dying ship convulsed around them. Without the neural center, the vessel was losing its ability to maintain basic life support. Acid levels were rising, and the walls were beginning to dissolve. Captain Walsh brought the shuttle in for a combat extraction, her ship's point defense. Systems cutting down Devourer creatures that tried to prevent the Marines' escape. The assault teams made it aboard just as the ship's hull began to rupture. From the bridge of the Constitution, Admiral Parker watched as the Queen's ship tore itself apart. Without central coordination, the Devourer fleet was easy prey for his gunships. One by one, the biomechanical vessels were destroyed or disabled. "All ships, this is Admiral Parker," he announced. "Primary objectives achieved. The Devourer threat to this system has been eliminated." But even as the human fleet celebrated their victory, Dr. Wells was analyzing the transmission they had detected from the neural center. The signal had been sent toward the galactic core, where ancient star maps showed no known civilizations. "Admiral," she reported grimly, "I don't think these Devourers were the main force. I think they were scouts, and they just told something much bigger exactly where to find us." The battle was won, but the war was just beginning. The Galactic Council Chamber had never hosted a meeting like this one. Representatives from dozens of species floated in their environmental suits, all staring at the three humans who sat calmly at the center of the room. Ambassador Claire Johnson wore a simple business suit that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced technologies surrounding her, flanked by two Terran Marines in combat armor. She represented a species that had just shattered every assumption the galaxy held about Deathworlders. Veltar of the Aquatic Dominion moved his tentacles nervously as he addressed the assembly. "The beings before us claim to represent the species from Sol 3, previously classified as a quarantined Deathworld. They have provided evidence of eliminating the Devourer threat to the Zephyrian system." A crystalline Athari representative chimed in with obvious distress. "This is unprecedented. No species has ever emerged from quarantine status, especially not from a world classified as uninhabitable." Ambassador Johnson stood slowly, her movements calm and deliberate. "With respect, honored representatives, your classification of our world was incomplete. Yes, Earth is dangerous by your standards. Yes, our environment would kill most of your species within hours. But danger breeds adaptation, and adaptation breeds strength. You've been monitoring our communications, accused? A gaseous Vorthok entity, its words forming as angry red lights." "For how long?" 73 years, Johnson replied without hesitation. "We received your first subspace transmissions in 1952 by your calendar. We've been listening and learning ever since." The admission caused chaos in the chamber. Representatives spoke over each other in dozens of languages, their translators struggling to keep up with the rapid exchanges. The concept of a species secretly observing galactic civilization for decades was almost incomprehensible to minds that valued openness and cooperation above all else. Silthies. The Zephyrian ship commander who had first encountered the humans raised his crystalline hand for silence. "Honored Council, I have seen these beings in action. They saved my people when no one else could. Perhaps we should ask why they remained hidden, rather than condemning them for it." Johnson nodded gratefully toward the Zephyrian. "We remained hidden because your own records told us to. Every document we intercepted classified Earth as too dangerous for contact. Your scout ships detected our nuclear weapons, our industrial pollution, our history of warfare. You decided we were too violent to join galactic civilization. And you have proven that assessment correct," stated an Athari representative coldly. "You destroyed the Devourer fleet with weapons of mass destruction. We saved 8 billion. Zephyrian lives," Johnson replied firmly. "Your peaceful species couldn't stop them. Your exploration vessels couldn't fight them. Your council couldn't even agree on a response until entire worlds were consumed. Sometimes violence is the only answer to violence." The debate continued for hours, but the real negotiations were happening in smaller groups throughout the station. Species representatives met privately with human diplomats, trying to understand what humanity's emergence meant for the galactic balance of power. Dr. Ryan Thompson, now serving as Earth's chief technology advisor, found himself in constant demand. Every species wanted to know how humans had developed such advanced military capabilities while remaining hidden. "Your fusion drives are beyond our current understanding," admitted a Sylvani researcher during one such meeting. "The energy output suggests principles we have never encountered." Thompson smiled diplomatically. "Earth's environment forced us to develop efficient energy systems. When your world tries to kill you every day, you learn to build things that last." Meanwhile, Admiral Parker was meeting with what passed for military leaders among the council. Species. Most had never fought a real war, and their ships were designed for exploration rather than combat. "You're offering to train our personnel?" asked Captain Zermith of the Centauri Defense Fleet, his insectoid features showing confusion. "We're offering to teach you how to protect yourselves," Parker corrected. "The Devourers sent a signal before we destroyed them. Something bigger is coming, and peaceful intentions won't stop it." It's the admission that the Devourer threat wasn't completely eliminated had caused panic throughout the council. For the first time in their recorded history, the galaxy faced an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with or negotiated away. Back in the main chamber, Ambassador Johnson was outlining humanity's proposal for the future. "We don't seek to rule or dominate. We offer protection and training to any species willing to accept it. In return, we ask for recognition as a legitimate galactic civilization and access to your scientific knowledge. And if we refuse?" asked the Vorthok representative. Johnson's expression didn't change, but the two Marines behind her seemed to straighten slightly. "Then you'll face the next threat alone, just as the Zephyrians would have." It wasn't exactly a threat, but everyone in the chamber understood the implications. Humanity had revealed capabilities that dwarfed anything the Council possessed. They could either be partners or be left to fend for themselves. The vote took 3 days of debate, but the outcome was inevitable. By a margin of 47-12, with 8 abstentions, the Galactic Council officially recognized humanity as a member species and approved the formation of the Terran Defense Corps. Commander Alex Rodriguez, promoted to Admiral after his successful first contact mission, stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned TDC headquarters station orbiting Earth. The facility had been built in record time, using human construction techniques that amazed alien observers. "First class of trainees reports, Ready Admiral," announced Captain Lisa Hayes. Now serving as the Defense Corps Training Director, Rodriguez studied the roster. Zephyrian volunteers made up the largest group, their peaceful nature completely abandoned in favor of learning human military doctrine. Representatives from 23 other species had also volunteered, including some from civilizations that had initially opposed humanity's emergence. "What's their status?" "The Zephyrians are adapting fastest," Hayes reported. "Turns out crystalline beings make excellent snipers once you teach them proper targeting. The aquatic Dominion troops are struggling with our atmospheric requirements, but they're determined to learn." The first graduation ceremony was held 6 months later. Young beings from across the galaxy stood at attention while human instructors awarded them the badge of the Terran Defense Corps. They had learned to fight in environments that would have killed their ancestors. Trained with weapons their peaceful civilizations had never imagined, and embraced a warrior culture born from humanity's violent past. Zilanara, the Zephyrian scientist who had first detected the Devourers, was among the graduates. She now carried a human-designed rifle and wore armor that could protect her in the vacuum of space. Her crystal-clear features had taken on the hard edge that came with military training. "My people were artists and philosophers," she told Rodriguez during the ceremony. "Now we are warriors." "Is this what it means to be free?" "It means you have choices," Rodriguez replied. "You can still create art and study philosophy, but now you can also protect them." The changes went beyond military training. Human agricultural techniques were revolutionizing food production on peaceful worlds. Human industrial methods were being adapted for species that had never needed to maximize efficiency. Most importantly, human defensive strategies were being implemented on worlds that had never needed to consider security. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Several species left the Council rather than accept human influence, preferring isolation to militarization. Others formed their own defensive alliances, viewing humanity as a potential threat rather than protector. But for those who stayed, the benefits were undeniable. When pirate fleets attacked shipping lanes in the Outer Rim, TDC forces responded with overwhelming force. When territorial disputes threatened to escalate into wars, human mediators arrived with solutions. Backed by military strength, the galaxy was learning that peace wasn't just the absence of conflict. Sometimes it required the strength to fight. Fort Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the TDC station, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The planet still looked dangerous from space, its swirling storms and harsh climate visible even from orbit. But now the galaxy knew the truth about Deathworlders. They weren't monsters to be feared or primitives to be pitied. They were guardians who had spent millennia learning how to survive in impossible conditions, developing the strength and determination needed to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And when the next transmission arrived from the Galactic Core, carrying signals from whatever had sent the Devourers, humanity would be ready. The children of Earth had stepped out of the shadows, and they would never hide again.